Hey guys, Level Cap here. Today we're going to compare Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4 in regards to the state of their releases, available features, visual fidelity, and the fun factor. Let's get into it, and what better place to start than the launch of both games. Now, the Battlefield franchise has had some plaguing launches in the past, to say the least, and Battlefield 4 was definitely one of them. The game had numerous crashing and failing to launch issues, laggy multiplayer performance, and a myriad of bugs that broke the fundamental game designs. These issues were eventually ironed out, but it took a lot longer than expected. The current state of Battlefield 4, however, is so much better it's almost night and day when compared to the initial game that launched, but many of the biggest improvements came over a year after release. Battlefield 1, on the other hand, has had a relatively stable launch. Building upon the engine and launch issues that Battlefield 4 learned from, this game has had minimal netcode and crashing issues. Most of the bigger technical issues that this game has had have now been fixed only several patches after release. It's not even a debate really as to which game had a better release. Battlefield 4 had an incredibly rocky start where Battlefield 1 hit the ground running. Aside from some large-scale DDoS attacks, there wasn't much that got in the way of people playing and enjoying Battlefield 1. So in that category, BF1 is clearly the victor, but let's talk about some of the game features. Now, Battlefield 4 has had 3 years to add in tons of features, but rather than focusing on what the game has become, let's talk about what it had at the start. At launch, Battlefield 4 shipped with 10 multiplayer maps, 64 primary weapons, that's not including sidearms or gadgets, and 16 classifications of vehicles, not counting the visual differences between factions, of course. Battlefield 1, on the other hand, launched with 9 maps plus the one giant shadow that we got from the December DLC for a total of 10, which is the same as Battlefield 4 ultimately, but the primary weapons for Battlefield 1 only shipped with 24 versus Battlefield 4's 64, which is practically a third of the weapon variety of Battlefield 4. This also meant we lost the universal class weapons, so guns you could use across any class aren't really available in Battlefield 1 unless you count the sidearms. Now, we could say that the different variations of guns in Battlefield 1 count as more weapons, but really the variations are just taking the place of Battlefield 4's attachment system, which allowed you to modify and customize any of the 64 primary guns at launch, plus the sidearms as well. The lack of weapon variety could be tied into the setting of Battlefield 1, but as many community members have pointed out, there are a lot more weapons yet to be realized in this theater of war. Now, Battlefield 1 launched with 11 classifications of vehicles and 12 if we count the horse. Not quite Battlefield 4's 16 vehicles, but then again, many of Battlefield 1's vehicle modifications changed the purpose of vehicles pretty drastically, such as the artillery truck's ability to become an anti-air truck with the right vehicle loadout. On the other hand, Battlefield 4 had a bit more variety. Helicopters added a whole different type of combat to the game, and the attack boats played a much more vital role when compared to the boats in Battlefield 1. I'd say the two games are fairly equal when it comes to vehicle choices. Both have their pros and cons, but neither game clearly stands out over the other. Now, I didn't mention behemoths in the vehicle section because those really take the place of Battlefield 4's Levolution. If you haven't caught on by now, it seems like each major Battlefield game from here on out is going to have a big gimmicky feature that's going to look amazing in trailers and sell the shit out of these games. Battlefield 4's Levolution was one of those things that looked great at first but got old real quick and ultimately didn't really add anything to the gameplay. Behemoths, on the other hand, look amazing and are implemented in a strategic way to influence the battle. Also, Battlefield 1 still has mini Levolution events scattered around maps like the collapsing Rock Bridge in Sinai Desert or destroying the front of Foul Fortress. Other added features along the same lines include dynamic weather effects, squad joining for PC, and a new and improved spectator mode, which is a bit more powerful than the one from Battlefield 4. Now, when it comes to graphics and destruction, it's a little bit of an unfair comparison because Battlefield 1 came out 3 years after Battlefield 4, which is also being held back by old-gen console requirements. When Battlefield 4 launched, it was one of the best-looking multiplayer games and still holds up when compared to most games of today. However, it wasn't that big of a leap from Battlefield 3. Without the old-gen console ball and chain, Battlefield 1 has taken the visuals even further. I think it's pretty safe to say that Battlefield 1 is one of the most visually stunning multiplayer titles on the market. Now, Battlefield 1 did see a pretty big upgrade when it comes to environmental destruction as well. Having dynamic terrain deformation is something that hasn't been taken to this level in a Battlefield title before, and it really adds a new sense of realism to the game. More buildings are also destructible compared to the previous title, though that feature is not something that was being held back by technology as much as it was a design choice in Battlefield 4 to not include as much destruction. Generally speaking, I think the Battlefield community is much happier with the level of destruction available in BF1. Visually though, Battlefield 1 is a much bigger leap forward from Battlefield 4 than Battlefield 4 was from Battlefield 3. And regardless of the old gen console circumstances of the previous game, I still think we kind of have to give the win in this category to Battlefield 1. Now, one area of BF1 that has not quite lived up to the previous title is the reward system. Now, I have talked about this aspect of Battlefield 1 at length and in multiple videos, but to give you a basic overview, the customization of vehicles and weapons has been shifted away from the reward-based system and put into a battle pack system that focuses on luck and money. Not only this, but the aesthetic options are less than they were in Battlefield 4, as we no longer have any sort of soldier customization. The medal and dog tag system has also been diminished by trying to shoehorn it into a daily quest scenario with a bad user interface. Without question, the Battlefield 1 reward system is a major step back from Battlefield 4, and it's especially disappointing when this was one of the systems that already needed a fair bit of improvement. In this department, Battlefield 4 without question takes the win. Now, when it comes to single players, I think most people would agree that Battlefield 1 had better stories and was more interesting because of the historical relevance. From a gameplay standpoint, I think they were both on par, in the sense that they weren't challenging in the slightest and neither seemed to pull away from the gaming on rails sensation. Personally, it takes a lot for a single player to wow me, so if I had to grade these single players, I would have to say Battlefield 4 was a solid C, with Battlefield 1 only inching ahead with a C+. Luckily, the main selling factors of both of these games are the multiplayer content, and I feel the single player is practically designed in part there to make compelling trailers for the game as well. Now let's talk about the gameplay, balance, and fun factors of the two games. Feature sets aside, none of that really matters if you're not having fun while playing the game ultimately, so this is a pretty important subject. This is also the most subjective part of the whole video, as some people clearly prefer the more modern combat of Battlefield 4, and others prefer the step back in time with Battlefield 1. Personally, I think the gameplay in Battlefield 1 is superb. The removal of assault rifles allows the dice map design to work much better than it did in Battlefield 4. Time to kill is a little slower, and medium range combat is now much more forgiving, allowing people to move around more easily. However, there are of course some familiar dice traits in Battlefield 1 that I consider to be a negative. The grenade spam and gas ban is right on the verge of bad, almost dipping into the awful category. Weapon spread, recoil, and suppression has taken a step in the casual gaming direction. The learning curve for recoil has become easier, and the power of suppression has been tripled if not quadrupled. Both of these things put much more power in the hands of novice players. If you're a novice player, then this is a good thing, but if you want to commit yourself to the game, you may find the gunplay to be a bit shallow. And although I'm still really enjoying Battlefield 1 right now, I imagine this will curtail my enjoyment over time. Then again, the gunplay, grenades, and balance of Battlefield 4 has gone through some massive changes during its lifetime, so it's possible we may see the same thing with Battlefield 1. From a fun aspect, I'm enjoying Battlefield 1 a bit more right now. It's easier to find a balanced, non-one-sided game of Battlefield 1 than it ever was in Battlefield 4. Even with all the balance and long-term additions that DICE has made to Battlefield 4, I think BF1 is still a superior title in the fun factor alone. Content-wise, Battlefield 4 had more things to do at launch, and the lack of reward-based content in Battlefield 1 has really agitated me and will continue to do so. But flaws aside, I think Battlefield 1 is a great addition to the Battlefield franchise, and many years from now when we're all playing the next Battlefield game, I'm sure many of my Battlefield memories will come back to this game and the epic enjoyment it has brought me. Both Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1 are good games, but I think Battlefield 1 has started off on a better foot than BF4 and has the potential to refine itself into a legendary game. I look forward to seeing all the updates and balance changes DICE brings to this game. Let me know in the comments what you think about Battlefield 1 versus Battlefield 4. Which game do you think is better and why? As always, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.